Julian Hawthorne was reviewing quarterly reports in his corner office on the 42nd floor when his assistant knocked on the door with an unusual expression on her face. "Mr. Hawthorne, there's a situation," Patricia said carefully. "Your cleaning service sent someone, but it's not the usual person." Julian glanced up from his computer, already irritated by the interruption. He was the CEO of Hawthorne Industries, a commercial real estate empire worth over $2 billion, and he had neither the time nor the patience for personnel issues with the cleaning staff. "Then send them in to do their job," he said curtly, returning his attention to the spreadsheet on his screen. "Sir, I think you should see this yourself," Patricia insisted, her voice holding an odd note that finally made Julian look up. What he saw made him push back from his desk in shock. Standing in his doorway was a little girl who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. She had curly blonde hair that fell past her shoulders, enormous blue eyes, and wore a child-sized apron over her blue shirt. In her small hands, she clutched a white cleaning cloth that was almost as big as she was. A pink backpack that looked far too large for her frame sat at her feet. "Hello," the child said with heartbreaking seriousness, her voice tiny but determined. "I'm here to clean your office. My mom's sick, so I came instead." Julian stared at her, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This had to be some kind of joke, or a misunderstanding, or a hallucination brought on by too many late nights at the office. "I'm sorry, what?" he managed to say. The little girl stepped into his office, dragging her backpack behind her. "My name is Lily Anderson. My mommy is Grace Anderson. She cleans your office every night, but she's really sick today with a fever and couldn't get out of bed. She was crying because she said if she missed work, we wouldn't be able to pay rent. So I told her I would come do her job for her." Julian exchanged a look with Patricia, who seemed equally stunned. He knelt down to the child's level, his expensive suit pants creasing against the polished floor. "Lily, how old are you?" he asked gently. 4 3/4, she said proudly. "Almost 5. And how did you get here?" "I took the bus," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Mommy takes the number 47 bus to work every night, and I watched where she keeps the bus card. And I know which stop to get off at because she showed me once when I had to come with her when the babysitter was sick." Julian felt his blood run cold. This 4-year-old child had traveled across the city alone at night to clean an office so her mother wouldn't lose her job. The courage was astounding, but the danger she'd put herself in was terrifying. "Lily, does your mother know you're here?" Julian asked, though he already knew the answer. The little girl shook her head, her curls bouncing. She was sleeping. The medicine made her really sleepy. "I left her a note so she wouldn't worry. I wrote, 'Gone to work for you. Love, Lily,' with my best letters." Julian rubbed his face, trying to think. He needed to find this child's mother immediately, but he also needed to understand the situation that had driven a 4-year-old to take such desperate action. "Lily, can you tell me where you live? What's your address?" Lily's face scrunched up in concentration. 3-2-7... ... something. I can't remember the rest, but I know how to get there on the bus." "Shh." Julian pulled out his phone and called his head of security. "I need you to pull up the employee file for Grace Anderson, cleaning staff. I need her address and phone number immediately." While he waited, he turned his attention back to Lily. "Are you hungry? Thirsty? When did you last eat?" "I had breakfast," Lily said. "Mommy made me cereal before she got too sick. That was a long time ago, though. Is it okay if I start cleaning now? I know how to dust, and I'm really careful not to knock things over." Julian's heart broke looking at this tiny child, so earnest and determined, trying to help her mother in the only way she knew how. His phone buzzed with the information he'd requested, and what he saw made his chest tighten with anger and sorrow. Grace Anderson, 26 years old, single mother, working 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. The address was in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city, a place where rent was cheap because the buildings were falling apart and crime was high. Her file showed perfect attendance for the past 2 years, never a complaint. Always reliable. Julian dialed the phone number, and it rang 6 times before a groggy, panicked voice answered. Hello, Ms. Anderson, this is Julian Hawthorne. I'm the CEO of Hawthorne Industries. Your daughter is here in my office. There was a sharp intake of breath, then sobbing. Oh God, Lily, is she okay? I woke up and she was gone, and I found a note, and I've been calling everywhere trying to find her. I'm so sorry, Mr. Hawthorne. I'm so sorry. Please don't call the police. Please don't take her away from me. I'm a good mother. I swear, I just fell asleep from the fever medicine, and she must have snuck out. Miss Anderson, your daughter is safe, Julian said firmly. I'm not calling the police, and I'm not calling child services, but I am sending a car to pick you up and bring you to my office. We need to talk. I can't afford to lose this job, Grace said desperately. Please, Mr. Hawthorne, I'll make up the work. I'll come in extra days. Just please don't fire me. We'll discuss it when you get here, Julian said. The car will be at your address in 15 minutes. Bring any medication you need. And Miss Anderson, your daughter is remarkably brave, but she could have been seriously hurt traveling across the city alone. We have a lot to talk about. After hanging up, Julian turned to Patricia. Order dinner from that Italian place on 5th. Enough for 4 people. And get some juice boxes and cookies. Something a child would like. Patricia nodded and hurried out, leaving Julian alone with Lily, who had climbed up onto his leather couch and was swinging her legs, which didn't quite reach the floor. Is my mommy in trouble? Lily asked in a small voice. Julian sat down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. No, sweetheart, your mommy isn't in trouble, but I'm worried about both of you. Can you tell me why your mommy has to work so many jobs? Lily's face became serious, as if she was sharing a great secret. We don't have a daddy. He left before I was born. Mommy says she has to work extra hard so we can have a place to live and food to eat, and so I can go to preschool. She's really tired all the time, but she always smiles for me and reads me stories before bed, even when her eyes are closing. Does your mommy get sick a lot? Julian asked gently. Sometimes, Lily admitted. She gets really tired, and sometimes she cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. But she never complains, not even when her back hurts from cleaning all day and all night. She's the best mommy in the whole world. Julian felt something shift in his chest. A crack in the armor he'd built around his heart over 15 years of ruthless business dealings. He'd worked his way up from nothing, built his empire through determination and a certain coldness that served him well in boardrooms, but had left him isolated and alone. He'd forgotten what it was like to struggle, to worry about rent and food, to work multiple jobs just to survive. This 4-year-old child, with her earnest face and her cleaning cloth, had just reminded him. 40 minutes later, Grace Anderson arrived at his office, brought up by Julian's personal driver. She was a petite woman with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, her face flushed with fever and streaked with tears. The moment she saw Lily, she ran to her daughter and pulled her into a tight embrace. Don't you ever do that again, Grace sobbed. You scared me so much. You could have been hurt, or lost, or taken by bad people. Promise me, Lily. Promise me you'll never leave the house alone again. I'm sorry, Mommy, Lily said, crying now too. I just wanted to help. You were so worried about losing your job and not paying rent, and I thought if I came and did the cleaning, everything would be okay. Grace held her daughter at arm's length, looking into her eyes. Baby, nothing is more important than you being safe. Nothing. Not this job, not rent, nothing. Do you understand me? Lily nodded, and they hugged again. Julian waited, giving them their moment. Before clearing his throat, gently Grace stood up, wiping her eyes, and faced him. Even sick and exhausted, She held herself with dignity. Mr. Hawthorne, I apologize for my daughter coming here. It won't happen again. If you need to fire me, I understand. But please, if there's any way I could keep this job, I really need it. Sit down, Miss Anderson, Julian said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. Once they were seated, Lily curled up in her mother's lap, and Julian opened the file he'd had Patricia prepare. I've been reviewing your employment history, he said. You've been with the cleaning service we contract for 2 years, and before that, you worked for a different service we used. Perfect attendance, never a complaint, consistently excellent work. You're also listed as working at a grocery store and a coffee shop. 3 jobs, all part-time, none with benefits. Grace's cheeks flushed. I do what I have to do to support my daughter. I'm sure you do, Julian said. But what happens when you get sick, like today? What happens if you injure yourself? What happens to Lily? We manage, Grace said, her voice defensive. I'm a good mother, Mr. Hawthorne. Lily is fed, clothed, and loved. She goes to preschool. I may not have much, but I'm doing my best. I'm not questioning your devotion to your daughter, Julian said. But Miss Anderson, your 4-year-old child traveled across the city alone at night, 'cause she was so worried about your financial situation that she felt responsible for solving it. That's not the burden a child should carry. Grace started crying again, and Lily patted her mother's face with small hands. Don't cry, Mommy. I'm sorry. Julian leaned back in his chair, studying the woman and child before him. He thought about his own childhood, growing up with a single mother who'd worked herself into an early grave trying to provide for him. He thought about the promises he'd made to himself about using his success to make a difference. Promises he'd largely forgotten in his pursuit of more wealth and power. I have a proposal, he said finally. But first, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to offer isn't charity. It's not a handout. It's a job offer, one that you're qualified for and will have to work hard to succeed at. If you accept, you'll earn every penny. Are we clear? Grace nodded warily. What kind of job? I need a facilities manager for Hawthorne Industries, Julian said. Someone to oversee all the cleaning and maintenance services for our 23 buildings. Someone to manage contractors, handle scheduling, deal with issues as they arise. It's a full-time position with benefits, including health insurance, retirement contribution, paid time off, and sick leave. The salary is $75,000 a year to start. Grace stared at him in shock. But I don't have any management experience. I just clean offices. You've been cleaning offices for 4 years, Julian countered. You know the work intimately. You know what good service looks like. And you know the challenges the workers face. That's more valuable than a business degree. I'll provide training in the management aspects. You'll report directly to my operations manager, and you'll start next Monday. I don't understand, Grace whispered. Why would you do this? Julian looked at Lily, who was watching him with those big blue eyes, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. 'Cause your daughter risked her life to help you keep a minimum wage job with no benefits and no security, he said. Because I was once a child like Lily, watching my mother work herself to death for poverty wages. Because I built this company promising myself I'd be different from the other CEOs. That I'd remember where I came from, and somewhere along the way, I forgot. Your daughter just reminded me. He stood up and extended his hand. So, Miss Anderson, do you accept the position? Grace took his hand with trembling fingers. Yes, I accept. Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne. You have no idea what this means to us. Call me Julian, he said. And I think I have some idea. The food arrived, and they ate together in Julian's office, an unlikely trio sharing Italian food while the city lights twinkled outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Lily told them about her preschool, about her favorite books, about her dream of becoming a veterinarian so she could help animals. Grace slowly relaxed as the fever medicine Julian had Patricia bring up began to work, and some of the exhaustion left her face as the weight of financial terror lifted as Julian watched him. He found himself thinking about his own loneliness, about the empty penthouse he'd returned to later that night, about the lack of real connection in his life. He'd built an empire, but forgotten to build a life. Over the following months, Grace proved herself to be an exceptional facilities manager. She knew the work from the ground up, treated the contractors with respect and fairness, and implemented improvements that saved Hawthorne Industries money while improving working conditions. Julian found himself looking forward to their weekly meetings, where Grace would report on operations, but they'd also talk about life, about their pasts, about their hopes for the future. Lily became a familiar presence in the office, stopping by after preschool sometimes to visit Mr. Julian, as she called him. He kept a drawer full of crayons and coloring books for her visits, and he found that her presence brightened his entire day. 6 months after that evening, when a 4-year-old girl had walked into his office with a cleaning cloth, Julian invited Grace and Lily to dinner at a real restaurant, not as employer and employee, but as something more. "I want to be honest with you," he said to Grace, while Lily was distracted by the dessert menu. "I have feelings for you that go beyond professional respect. I think about you constantly. I look forward to seeing you every day, and I'm in love with your daughter already. But I don't want you to feel pressured. You work for me, and I have power in this dynamic that makes this complicated." Grace smiled, the first truly relaxed smile he'd seen from her. "Julian, you gave me and my daughter a future when we had none. You treated us with dignity and respect when most people wouldn't have looked twice at a cleaning woman and her child. I've been falling in love with you for months, but I was afraid to admit it." Their relationship developed slowly, carefully, both of them mindful of Lily's needs and feelings. Julian had never considered himself father material, but he found that with Lily, it came naturally. He read her bedtime stories, helped her learn to ride a bike, attended her preschool performances, and discovered that being part of her life brought him more joy than any business deal ever had. A year after that fateful night, Julian and Grace were married in a small ceremony with Lily as flower girl. Julian adopted Lily officially, giving her his name and his whole heart at the reception. Julian raised a glass for a toast. "A year ago, a 4-year-old girl walked into my office and changed my entire life. She reminded me that success without compassion is meaningless, that wealth without generosity is empty, and that the best investment I could ever make was in people who needed a chance." He looked at his new wife and daughter, his family, and felt his eyes fill with tears. "Lily, you came to clean my office, but what you really did was clean out my heart. You swept away 15 years of cynicism and coldness and reminded me what really matters. You showed me that the bravest act isn't making millions or building empires. The bravest act is loving people, helping them, and being willing to be vulnerable enough to let them help you back." Grace squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. Lily, wearing a princess dress and a flower crown, climbed onto his lap and hugged him tightly. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart," Julian whispered back. "Thank you for being brave enough to walk into my office. Thank you for saving me." Years later, when Lily was applying to colleges and writing her admission essays, she wrote about that night when she'd been 4 years old and desperate to help her mother. She wrote about the CEO who could have called security, but instead called for dinner. She wrote about how one act of desperation had turned into a lifetime of love and opportunity. "People always say that my dad rescued us," she wrote, "but I think we rescued each other. My mom and I reminded him of his humanity, and he gave us security and love. But more than that, he saw us. In a world that often makes poor people invisible, he took the time to really see us, to understand our story, to care about our future. That's what changed everything. Not the money or the job, though those mattered. It was being seen, being valued, being treated like we mattered." Julian framed that essay and hung it in his office, right next to a photograph of 4-year-old Lily holding her oversized cleaning cloth. Whenever he faced a difficult business decision, whenever he was tempted to prioritize profit over people, he looked at that picture and remembered. He remembered a little girl brave enough to cross a city alone to save her mother's job. He remembered a woman strong enough to work 3 jobs while never letting her daughter feel the weight of their poverty. He remembered the night his entire life changed because he chose compassion over convenience, and he made sure that every person who worked for Hawthorne Industries received fair wages, real benefits, and respect. He established scholarship programs for employees, children, child care assistance, and emergency funds for families in crisis. He built his company into not just a profitable enterprise, but a place where people were valued and supported, because a 4-year-old girl once walked into his office and taught him the most important lesson he'd ever learned: that the measure of success isn't what you accumulate, but what you do for others. That real wealth isn't in your bank account, but in the lives you touch and the love you give, all because of a little girl in an apron, clutching a cleaning cloth, saying with perfect earnestness, "Mom's sick, so I came instead." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of unexpected families and life-changing compassion. Leave a comment below about a time when a child's bravery inspired you, or about someone who saw your worth when others looked past you. Share your thoughts on how we can build workplaces that value people, not just profits, that recognize the dignity of every person, regardless of their position. Remember, everyone has a story, everyone is fighting battles we can't see, and everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and supported. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us of these simple truths.